Yo, yo, testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. I don't know what that was. That was crazy. Y'all let me know. Can y'all hear me? Everything working all right? I had some struggle streaming going on. Let me know in the chat if y'all could hear me. I just want to make sure everything good. That was crazy. I don't know. My computer did something weird. All right, it looked like everything good. Uh-oh. What's going on, Maddie? I appreciate you tuning in. Harley, I appreciate you tuning in as well. Thank you all. Can y'all hear me? Is it audio? Y'all can hear me? Okay. I don't know what's going on. My computer did something wild, but a round of applause to y'all for tuning in. We're gonna only cover two stories because we got to go through an indictment, and y'all know those indictments. They take a long time, a bit of a time. But shout out to Harley, shout out to Maddie, both of y'all for tuning in. Round of applause for the first comment of the day. All right, I appreciate you. Thank you, Candy Girl. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Now, this first story is going to be interesting because I had like four stories, but these indictments get long, so we're gonna have to figure that out later. This first story is interesting. We did a video on Mr. Telvin Osborne, and Mr. Telvin Osborne was shot by his girlfriend, and she said that she was cleaning her firearm after they were out drinking at the club, having a good time. They got into an argument. And amazingly, Mr. Osborne was a, was a brother, and the uh, perpetrator was a white female, and she did not get arrested until a uproar, an outburst of social media. She ends up getting charged with involuntary manslaughter, which I think is the wrong charge. We talked about it, but let's take a look at a similar story so we can see how when the roles are reversed, kind of not super similar facts, but generally similar. But we're gonna take a look at the story of a TikTok couple, and the young man shot his girlfriend in the face. But more importantly, let's not pay attention to what happened. Let's pay attention to what occurred after this shooting. So let me go ahead and pull up the article. Then we're going to watch a quick TikTok video because the person who got shot in this instance is still alive, and we got to talk about it. Let's go ahead, cue things up. Now, I don't know if you all remember this story or not, but boyfriend from popular TikTok duo arrested for allegedly shooting girlfriend in the face after a heated fight. All right. A man who posted popular videos on TikTok documenting his romantic life and relationship with his girlfriend is under arrest and charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon after police in Texas say Ladarius Morshawn Brownlee shot that looks like Saida Zara Hashimi in the face, leaving her alive but with life threatening injuries. In a statement from police on Facebook, officers said the shooting occurred close to 1 a.m. on July 5th. Brownlee also faces three charges of deadly misconduct, discharging a firearm, according to Denton County jail records. A bond of $900,000 was set for the Northlake, Texas resident, and he remained detained as of Thursday. It is unclear if he has retained an attorney. And this story was July 11th of 2004. So we got to get the update. Local ABC affiliate reported that Brownlee confessed to shooting Hashimi on a 911 call that first brought police to the scene. The woman was shot in the face above her right eye after the couple allegedly got into a heated argument. WFAA reported that witnesses said the couple were arguing as they were leaving an Independence Day festival at at Bakersfield Park and Flower Mound. The couple allegedly got into a physically altercation before getting in their car and then driving less than 3 miles from the park. Brownlee stopped the 2024 Chevy Blazer SUV he was driving and shot Hashimi after brandishing the gun at passengers in the rear of the vehicle, police said. Evil Nick Cannon is crazy. So, all right, that's the defendant in this case. Hashimi was transported to a local hospital in Grapevine, Texas. Police said requests for comments about her condition as of Thursday were not immediately returned. The couple shared content from an account on TikTok under the Portmanteau Dino and Zara and generated hundreds of videos with millions of views. They had a following a little over 155,000 as of Thursday. Witnesses to the shooting described the couple relationship as tumultuous and at times physically violent, the Dallas News reported. Okay, so now that's the article. Now, this story is interesting. What in the world is going on? Oh, okay. My bad. Hold on. I was like, what is going on with this thing? Now, this story is actually interesting because the victim in this case is still alive. So I want to go ahead pull up the video so we can get a little bit about what happened. So, shot in the head, suffered severe injuries, potentially life-threatening injuries. This was in July of 2024. Now Zara, the victim in the case, is alive and well. Now, it's interesting. Let's get her take on this, and it just goes to show that, hey, some, you know what? I'm not even going. I'm gonna just go ahead. Let me go ahead and add it to the stream. So let's see. I'm gonna go and add a stream. So this is our. She says no one really knows how sweet Dino is. Dino is still locked up in custody where he needs to be after getting shot in the face by this guy, almost dying. Now she's suffering from a traumatic brain injury. But listen to how she started out her video after she said she had to learn to talk and walk and everything all over.
No one knows how sweet Dino is. I swear to God, no one knows. You weren't in the car. You weren't driving. You weren't anywhere. And do people even know where I was at? Do you? No. The ones that read the whole story and they're educated in the story, okay. But everybody else, no. You don't know what happened. Because why? I'm a Capricorn. So why?
Okay, enough of that. Let's rewind it back again. She was almost died in the hospital. Had to learn how to talk over it, and she started her video out once she got back on social media with this.
No one knows how sweet Dino is. I swear to God, no one knows.
That's actually crazy. Now, here's the interesting thing. There were other persons in the car. But so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I think he's screwed personally because there's other witnesses in the car. And I also think that his statement of admission at the time of arrest is going to be detrimental to his case. But presumably, literally, had it just been him and her in the car, evil Nick Cannon might have got away with one. Because it's absolute no doubt in my mind that this young lady right here.
You weren't in the car. You weren't driving.
Loves Dino to death. And would be willing to say whatever she needed to say to make sure evil Nick Cannon didn't go into custody. Now, I don't even know if it was his intention. It looked like he was brandishing it to the people in the back seat, and he accidentally, inadvertently did it. Long story short, Dino's going to go away for a long time. But had he given an excuse like he was cleaning his gun or some crazy thing, even though the facts aren't the same, they would have threw his black ass in custody immediately. But the big takeaway from this is, one, you should never open your mouth to make an admission of anything. I don't care what it is. I don't care even if you didn't do it. Never open your mouth to admit anything. This sounds crazy, but you probably also should refrain from saying these two words, which could lead you into a lot of legal trouble. I'm sorry. Because I just wanted to, sometimes it can be seen as an admission of guilt if you apologize. So as an attorney, I would generally wouldn't want my client to say anything. Don't say I'm sorry. Don't say my bad. You can say, hey, you need some help. Are you all right? You can say a lot of things, but not those things. But I thought that story was interesting because this young lady almost got her muffin top knocked off. And the minute she learns how to talk again, she's standing up for the guy who shot her in the face. Crazy as hell, in my personal opinion. That's a I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he tried to kill her. He almost killed her. I don't know if he necessarily tried. It from what I read in the article, it sounded like it was inadvertent, but I don't know. They had an argument. People said their relationship was tumultuous. I don't know. It's giving kind of cap to me, but I don't know. We'll talk about it now. Before we get into this indictment, which is interesting, I want to touch on one quick thing. I want to talk about the video we did where we talked about the track stars. Was it an accident? Was it intentional? We got so caught up on the accident or intentional aspect. This is ultimately what's going to happen because we know now that the young lady was actually charged with criminal assault. If she hasn't had any prior contact with the criminal justice system, no prior record, the injuries were a concussion, no fractured skull, chances are she'll get what's called a deferred prosecution. A deferred prosecution is, you know what, because this is your first offense, you're young, you don't have any prior convictions, we're going to give you an opportunity to do some community service, stay on unsupervised probation for 6 months to a year. And if you stay out of trouble and you come back to court, we'll dismiss the charges so you can get them expunged. Everybody will go about their business. That's the deal that'll probably get offered if she doesn't have any prior criminal convictions. She should probably take that deal, but I don't think that's the right deal that should be offered. I think the fact that half of social media says it was intentional and the other half says it was an accident in and of itself means that they don't have enough to prove their case. But you don't never know. You don't want to risk a trial when you can do a little bit of community service and get a guaranteed dismissal. So I just wanted to clean that up before we get into this indictment. Now, this is consistent with what we do. We're looking at politicians who are down bad, who did some stupid stuff and got caught. And this one is a good one because there's audio, there's video, there's some braggadocious behavior. We're not going to watch the video, but they have hours of evidence against these guys. But before we start, I want to just, we got it in the thumbnail, but I want y'all to see who we working here with right here. All right, if we go from right to left, all right, we're looking at from the right to the left. Let me go and get my mug off this. All right, so these are the individual involved. You got the DA, you got the mayor, you got developers. So on the right, we have down bad Cedric the Entertainer. Then in the middle, we got James St. Patrick Ghost. It's like, nah. I was like, man, these dudes straight out of a comic book, man. This is ridiculous. But these are the brothers who are involved. Angelique Lee is also involved. Shady politician. I think she already ate her conviction. But let's go ahead, pull up this indictment so we can see what was going on in this case. Let's go and get it pulled up. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with y'all. Okay. I know about the case. I did not read this indictment. So we're going to go through it together. I'm going to leave it like this so y'all can read along. All right. So we have Jody Owens, Chokwe Lumbamba, and Aaron Banks. All right. Beginning on or about October 16th of 2023, continuing through on or about May 23rd of 2024, Jody Owens, the Hinds County District Attorney, conspired with Chokwe Lumumba, the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, Aaron Banks, the president of Jackson City Council, Angelique Lee, the vice president of Jackson City Council, Sharik Smith, a resident of Hinds County, and others known and unknown to carry out a bribery scheme to enrich themselves. Specifically, Owens, and keep Owens in mind because he's the prosecutor. The only thing worse than a corrupt prosecutor is probably the worst type of politician to be corrupted. Actually, because they for real, they hold life and death. They can get your case in front. A judge can't do anything unless the case is in front of you. The prosecutor could get the case in front of you. So prosecutors are taking bribes. It's fucking terrible. All right. Specifically, Owens, on behalf of two individuals purporting to be real estate developers from Nashville, Tennessee, identified as Developer 1 and Developer 2. Collectively, the developers facilitated over $80,000 in bribe payments to Banks and Lumumba and Lee in exchange for their agreements to take official action to ensure the approval of the developer's proposed multi-million dollar downtown Jackson development project. Owens solicited and accepted at least $115,000 in cash and promises of future financial benefits from the developers. To use his relationships with Banks and Lumumba and Lee to act as an intermediary for the $80,000 in bribe payments. Owens, Bank, Lumumba, Lee, and Smith were not aware that in reality, the developers were working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. As a part of the scheme, on January 11th, 2024, Banks solicited a $50,000 bribe in exchange for his future votes in favor of the developer's proposed developmental project. On February 13th, 2024, Banks accepted an initial payment of $10,000 in cash from the developers via Owens, along with the promise of funding for the employment of a family member and protective detail service. As part of the scheme, on February and March of 2024, in exchange for Lee's future vote in favor of the developer's project, Owens and the developers offered and Lee accepted a $10,000 debt repayment, $3,000 in cash, and a shopping trip resulting in approximately $6,000 in luxury goods. These people threw their lives away for not a lot of money. As part of the scheme, on or about March and April of 2024, Lumumba accepted a bribe payment of $50,000 from a developer via Owens. So Owens was the straw man who take the money from the developers and hand it to whoever it was going. This bribe was in the form of five $10,000 campaign donation checks from various entities and individuals, including Owens and Smith. Owens used the campaign donations check to disguise the true source of the funds. The developers, in an attempt to avoid scrutiny from the public and law enforcement. And Lumumba accepted the checks knowing and understanding that the money was from the developers and that it was being offered in exchange for official action from Lumumba in favor of the developer's proposed development project. All right. So background, so we know who everybody is. We talked about it briefly. In 2019, Owens was elected as the district attorney for Hinds County. He was reelected in November of 2023, and he was responsible for, among other duties, enforcing criminal laws in Jackson. Lumumba was first elected mayor of the city of Jackson in 2017. Lumumba was an agent of the city of Jackson and had the power to put matters, including development projects, before the Jackson City Council for a vote. Banks was elected to the city council in 2017 as a Ward 6 representative until July of 2024. He was the president of the Jackson City Council. As a member of the council, Banks was an agent of the city and could vote for or against developmental projects. Lee was elected in 2020 until August of 2024. Lee served as the vice president of the Jackson City Council, and as the vice president, she was allowed to vote for or against developmental project proposal put before the city. Smith was a resident of Hinds County, Mississippi, an insurance broker. He was also a relative and close associate of Owens, the DA. Developer one was a confidential source. That's crazy. Was a confidential human source. I've never seen that written like that. Developer one was a confidential source employed by the FBI. Developer one posed to be a real estate developer from Nashville, Tennessee, seeking to invest in and develop property in Jackson, Mississippi. Developer 2 was an undercover employee and was a confidential source employee of the FBI. Developer 2 purported to be a developer from Nashville and wanted to develop in Jackson, Mississippi. Witness 1, adult resident of Hinds County. Company A, an LLC incorporated in Mississippi. Principal place of business in Jackson, Mississippi. And Owens, the prosecutor, was the sole manager and registered agent. So I'm already assuming, before I even read this, that he was filtering his money through all of that stuff. Let's see. This is just me personally. I went to 1L in Jackson, and the mayor has let the city collapse. The streets are pothole ridden, crime rampant, and the zoo. Ah man, that was funny. He's like, bro was like, and the zoo even jacked up. Damn, that's a damn shame. I heard about the zoo with no animals. It's like a big. That's crazy work to have a zoo that don't got any damn animals in it. All right, so federal funding in the downtown development project. So we got Owens, the DA, Lumumba, the mayor of Jackson. The third individual is on the city council. Everybody else is on the city council and are able to vote for the projects that are going to become the future developmental projects in Jackson, Mississippi. All right, in each calendar year of 2023 and 2024, the Jackson, Mississippi received over $10,000. The city of Jackson, Mississippi received over $10,000 in benefits from the United States government under federal programs involving grants, subsidies, loans, guarantees, insurance, and other forms of assistance. Specifically, the city of Jackson received more than $10,000 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Since 2008, Jackson has sought to develop a 7.75-acre plot of land in downtown Jackson in the vicinity of the Convention Center complex. It was key to Jackson's revitalization project of the downtown area and would cost potential developers and the city millions of dollars to develop. To facilitate the project, the city of Jackson took out a multi-million-dollar loan from HUD in 2008. Now, I'll be honest, like, hey, I know I'm not a fan of all the Doge stuff generally, but it's rampant fraud, waste, and abuse in government and all these loans and subsidy programs and contracts. You just need somebody who actually not trying to finesse to find it, but it's rampant fraud out there. All right. They took out a multi-million-dollar loan from HUD in 2008 via Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program. As a condition of the loan, the city would relend the money to a potential developer for the purchase and development of the land. Pursuant to the terms of the loan, the city of Jackson had until June 30th, 2025 to complete its downtown development project. So the HUD program, Jackson, the city of Jackson, took a loan out from the federal government. That money isn't theirs to control. They can actually loan that money out to a developer if the developer comes in with a revitalization plan for that 7.75 acres to get the city economically robust, maybe get a spider monkey or two in their zoo, something like that that'll be productive. In order to complete the downtown development project, Jackson's Department of Planning sought assistance, hereinafter DPD. They sought assistance and partnerships from so-called master developers. Specifically, over the years, the DPD issued multiple requests for proposals, solicitations from qualified contractors seeking to serve as master developers for the downtown project. The Department of Development Planning, DPD, last issued a request for proposal for the downtown development project in July of 2023. The RFP is just a request for a proposal. We need somebody to come in here and do a work. Everybody send us a proposal. We'll go through a legitimate bidding process and award the contract to someone who is economically friendly and can do the job, not my cousin. But most times they give it to their cousin. All right. It says, all right, they saw the blah blah blah. The last RFP issue was in July of 2023 that saw a master developer that would transform a parking lot across from the convention center into a mixed-use development that included a hotel, parking garage, community green space. The July 2023 proposal received no responses from qualified developers. So it was nobody who can do the job. On February 5th, 2024, the DPD again sought to recruit developers, but instead of issuing a request for a proposal, the DPD issued a request for a statement of qualifications with a deadline of March 12, 2024. While a request for a proposal required developers to submit a detailed project proposal and bids, a request for qualifications only asked developers for credentials and portfolios. Then, after the selection process, the chosen developer submits a proposal in partnership with the DPD. The proposal is ultimately approved and denied by the Jackson City Council. So, yo, there's a lot of money to be made on the Jackson City Council. Definitely. Just Google. Y'all about to make me Google the zoo. Yeah. When I was living in Jackson, some pit bulls from the hood bordering the zoo got in, killed the African gazelles that lived there. They can escape us. I'm not laughing at the animals. Hey, shout out to the animals. I love the animals, but that story is wild. Give me 1 second. It's kind of toasty in this jacket. All right, I'm back. That's funny. Damn, the damn pit bulls in the hood uh killed the gazelles. That's crazy. All right, let's go and pick back up. So here, Owens, the DA, develops a scheme to bribe Jackson public officials. In July 2023, developer, and I'm just assuming, I don't know all the background on this, but I'm assuming that they already had intel that these guys were down for some pay for play action. That's why they were able to get these two developers slash confidential sources introduced to these people, because they knew once we got to do is introduce, once we put the bait out there, these yahoos gonna bite. All right. In July of 2023, developer one visited Company A's place of business in downtown Jackson, which had been recommended to him because of his genuine interest in the product sold at Company A. While at Company A, developer one met witness one. After hearing of developer one's interest in pursuing a real estate development in Jackson, witness one agreed to introduce developer one to individuals he believed could assist developer one with his goal. The next month, in August of 2023, Witness One introduced Developer One to the DA Owens, Smith, and others at Company A. Developer One told Owens that and the others that he and Developer Two were interested in a potential real estate opportunity in Jackson, Mississippi. On October 9th through October 11th, 2023, Owen Smith and others went on a trip to Nashville via a private jet. That's hilarious. They do stuff like that all the time. That's funny. All right, on October 9th, 2023, through October 11th, Owen Smith and others went on a trip to Nashville via a private jet paid for by the FBI on behalf of the developers. The purpose of the trip was in part to discuss business opportunities in Jackson. So immediately, even though these guys are actually developers and they also are snitches or confidential sources, as we like to say, even though they're confidential sources, a confidential source who engages in legitimate business has the opportunity to engage in legitimate business. But immediately, they just met in June, July, August, and in October, the Fed's like, nah, these dudes ain't legit. Let's go and get the private jet out and gas them up with the money. So you already see where this is going. Owens was ready, willing, and predisposed to engage in bribery at least as early as October 16th, 2023. On that day, Owens told the developers about his influence in the city of Jackson and the ability to purchase the support of public officials in the city of Jackson. Specifically, Owens told the developers that he could give the developers the Jackson Redevelopment Authority, a 7-person commission established by Jackson City Council with authority over certain real property in the city of Jackson. Owens told the developers that he and Smith own enough of the city and that he had a bag of fucking information on all city councilmen that allow him to get votes approved. Okay, so he's trying to. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of reading. He's trying to do what I like to refer to as the J. Edgar Hoover approach. I get information on all you politicians, and y'all do what I want, or I'm gonna drop this information on y'all. So Owens is shady as hell, but yeah, he using the J. Edgar Hoover. I'm gonna hold something over your head to make you be my BS notch type of thing. All right. During Owens' re-election party in November of 2023, upon being congratulated by the developers, Owens responded unprompted that his position as district attorney was the part-time job. The full-time job is developing. This is a part-time job to get leverage for the full-time job. This dude, one, he talks too much. All right, this is a part-time job to get leverage for the full-time job. This is the part-time job to get the conversations and the access, and the access equals the other shit we're trying to do. I can tell Owen's mad hood already. But I said this before when we were talking about the land bank fraud, why it would be so hard for Tiffany Henyard to do. If you're going to do a scheme, when you're an elected official, it gives you additional legal exposure because you have an obligation to act in the best interest of your constituents. So you probably shouldn't do any schemes, but doing the scheme as an elected official is going to make the consequences that much more severe. All right. The following day, on November 8th of 2023, the developers met with Owens, Smith, and Witness One in the back room of Company A. During the meeting, Owens and Smith negotiated an upfront payment of $250,000 to be paid to Owens, Smith, and Witness One for their roles in assisting the developers. Owens and Smith would be paid $100,000 each, while Witness One was to be paid $50,000. Owens accepts $125,000 in Florida to facilitate the scheme. On December of 2023, Owens, Smith, and Witness One traveled via private jet paid for by the FBI. That's hilarious how they put that in there. On behalf of developers to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a meeting with the developers. That evening, Owen met with the developers in a private room on a yacht. During the meeting, the developers asked Owens how he wanted to receive his payment. Owens responded that cash was easier and that he had brought a bag on the trip specifically for that purpose. Developer 2 then gave Owens $125,000 in cash to be split by Owens between himself, Smith, and Witness One. After receiving the $125,000, Owens explained his value to the developers. I'm not trying to overemphasize this, you guys, but my ability to prosecute people, there's only one me. So right now, every police agency comes to us. Everybody needs something. Every file comes to us. Everybody needs something fixed. Yeah, this dude's a dick. This dude's a jerk, man. This is ridiculous. Yeah, he's annoying. All right. Owen informs the developers of the downtown developmental request for qualifications. Remember, they just want qualifications here, not an actual proposal. On or about January 2024, the developers met with Owen Smith at Owen's private office in Jackson, Mississippi. Owens referred to that office as his war room. There, Owens informed the developers that the city of Jackson would soon issue a request for qualifications for the downtown development project. The developers expressed interest in obtaining the development project for themselves and noted that their desire to secure the long-term support of the city council. In response, Owens stated that they would need to avoid paying the city council members too much money up front. Specifically, Owens stated, I don't know if you have been around addicts before, right? You can give them a little blow, a little blunt, a little drink, but if you give them a case of whiskey and you give them a kilo of Coke, you give them a motherfucking pound of, I'm all cussing on YouTube, they're gonna demonetize me. You give him a mother bleeping, sorry about that, YouTube, pound of weed, they will die. This dude, real talk, he think he's Nino Brown. Never reminded me of something. Another story for another night. All right. Owens and Banks conspired to solicit a $50,000 bribe. The next night, on January 11th, 2024, the developers met with Owens, Smith, and Banks in the back room of Company A. There, Owens had a sidebar conversation with Banks in which Owens told Banks that he would tell the developers to pay Banks $25 now and $25 later. Owens then dismissed Banks from the table and privately informed the developers of Banks' demand. While Banks was absent, Owens also stated, we never give them the asking price. I buy cheeks, I buy cars, I buy cows, I buy drugs, whatever. My point is, like, Banks needs 50, you get 30, he gets installments. That's my game. Some people will overpay and say, I'm the guy who needs more, and some people will choose who pays. He wants 50. We'll give him 15 this year and 15 next year. See, this actually, let's think about what's going on here. Banks, the DA, who's a scumbag, is having a conversation with Owens because they're in this together. And they're like, yo, Banks is like, yo, Owens, I'm going to make sure you get 50. You're going to get 25 now and 25 later. Owens is cool, bet. The minute Owens leaves, he goes to the developer and was like, don't pay this clown that much. Like, literally, literally, the minute he leaves the table, he immediately was like, nah, we don't got to pay that dude. He kind of goofy. Man, we can lowball him. Like, yeah, this dude, like, yeah, this is the guy who is the worst type of person to do anything with because he gonna screw everybody over, and when he caught, he gonna tell on everybody. But that just goes to show that this dude is absolutely ridiculous. No, is one thing he has no honor amongst the people he's in the scheme with. But let's just be honest, that's how it goes most times. All right. When Banks rejoined the meeting, developer two asked him what he would need to support developers moving forward. Banks responded 50 grand as soon as possible. Next, Owens introduced Lumumba to the developers and refines the scheme. Lumumba, remember, is the mayor of Jackson. All right, so we got the DA of Hines County, the DA, we got Lumumba. On February 12th, 2024, Owens arranged a dinner for himself, Lumumba, Smith, and developers. During Owens' introduction to the developers to Lumumba, Owens stated, I've done background check. They're not FBI, by the way. This dude is a pompous a-hole. Not only is he a criminal, but he's a pompous a-hole on top of that. And he clearly isn't as smart as he thinks. They not the feds that I've done background checks. Bro, you don't think when the feds have plants, they make sure their backgrounds is legit? So if you're a little local, he a little local DA. No offense to DAs out there, but bro, your resources aren't that big. This dude arrogant as hell. All right. They're not the FBI, by the way. Owens also explained to Lumumba that the developers had shifted their focus to the request for proposal / request for qualifications related to the convention area hotels. Following dinner, Owen Smith and the developers went to the back room of the company's A place of business. There they discussed how they would continue to secure the support of the city council. Developer 2 expressed concerns that they still did not have enough votes secure. In response, Owen stated that the following day he would get the developers 3 more votes. Owens explained that the developers already had the leadership through Lumumba and Banks, and that he would next get the developers the pawns. So this dude is a piece of work. All right. Owens also explained that because public officials finance their personal lives through their campaign account, campaign contributions were the most effective way to influence them. So as long as the money came from within the state of Mississippi, to that end, Owens said that to clean the money, he planned to deposit all the cash provided to him by the developers into a bank account owned by a Mississippi company, Owens stated. This dude is not smart at all. You're going to take a big ass influx of cash and deposit it into a bank account and have the nerve and audacity to say, this is the cleanest way to, like, bro, you ain't doing anything. This dude's dumb. Hey, not telling y'all how to do any fraud. I want y'all to be law-abiding citizens. But this goes to show how arrogant and stupid this guy was. If you get ill-gotten gains, putting it in an account associated with a business doesn't do anything. Like, you would literally have to take the $125,000, flood it through a laundromat, a church, or something, then take the $85,000 that would be legit and put that money in the bank. Then maybe you make it a little bit more difficult. But this guy isn't fucking as bright as he think he is. All right. So he said he'll put it in a bank account owned by a Mississippi company. I'm sure the company is probably either in his name or his mama's name because he's not giving that. He's giving that bright. All right. Owens then stated, I don't give a crap where the money comes from. It can come from blood diamonds. It can come from blood diamonds in Africa. I don't give a effing crap. I'm a whole DA. F that ish. My job, as I understand it, with a little paperwork, is to get the deal done and get it done most effectively. We can take dope boy money. I don't give a crap, but I need to clean it and spread it. I can do it here. That's why we have businesses to clean the money, right? I don't give a crap. You give us the cash, we deposit it and give it back that way, that easy. And just from him stating that, I don't think he even knows what cleaning money is. Like, you give it to me, we put it in this bank account. Like, no, like if you had $500,000 of dirty money, after you cleaned it, you would probably have $250,000 after fees, maybe taxes. Because if once it's converted to legit money, you have to do legit stuff with it. So the more this guy talks, the more it shows me that he's not that bright. All right. Owens facilitates bribes to Banks and Lee. On February 13th, 2024, Owens and the developers met in the back room of Company A as previously planned. The developer gave Owens additional funds in the amount of $60,000, including $25,000 for Owens, $25K for Banks, and $10,000 for Lee. They gave Lee the short end of the stick. Owens pocketed his share and said that he would store the cash designated for Banks and Lee in the safe at the Hinds County District Attorney's Office. When Banks arrived in the back room, Owens gave Banks an envelope with $10,000 cash inside and told Banks that the money was from developers. Banks and Owens understood that the money was being paid in exchange for Banks' future votes to approve the developers' proposed development projects. Owens then inquired as to whether Banks was comfortable walking around with the cash because it was not a check like we normally do. Owens told Banks, "Do what you need to do. If you need to document some of this, then document it." Banks said that he was going to break it up. Again, this shows how shady Owens is. Owens gets 25K for Banks and 10K for Lee. Then when he get Banks, he like, "Hey bro, here go $10,000." Now peep the game. He gave Banks $10,000. He already previously told the developer that you don't really need to give him $50,000. So this dude name of the game is he gonna finesse all the extra money off the top. On that same evening, Bank also accepted employment for a family member and a protective detail service from the developers. Both were paid by the developers through Owens via a Mississippi bank account. Between March and May of 2024, the developers spent approximately $1,500 on Bank's protective detail and $4,800 on Bank's family members employed. $1,500 on a protective detail. Your security want covers ass. All right, 2 days later, on or about February 15th, 2024, Owens, using the money from the developers, paid off $10,000 of Lee's campaign debt via a wire transfer from his campaign account. Owens later sent the developer proof of a payment via text message. Owens and Lee understood that the debt payment was in exchange for Lee's future vote to approve the developer's proposed development plan. Owens might not be the stupidest person involved in this. It might be Angelique Lee because she gave all that away for $10,000. Like, bro, you about to go do all this time for $10,000 to pay off a debt that's not even a personal debt, but a campaign debt. And I will tell you, as politicians, these people don't make that much money, but they make enough money not to be this damn thirsty. It's just greed. All right, on or about February 28th, Owens, Smith, and the developers met again at the War Room. During the meetings, Owens explained that to ensure Lee's vote at various stages of the project, they could pay Lee $5,000 every month from Owens' campaign account. That's another dumb thing. Oh, shit. Hold on. I done turned the page around and jacked it up. Hold on. Pull it back up. Then I jacked it up. Now I gotta rotate it. All right, sorry about that. But that's another stupid thing that I don't know why it's done that way. But if you're doing something that's illegal, what sense does it make to say, "Hey, put me on monthly installments of continued illegal activity"? So every transaction that occurs via wire is a new wire fraud charge I could get. Well, I'm looking at another 20 years for each transaction instead of just giving it to me in one lump sum and I figure it out on the back end. Again, a bunch of dumbasses. Okay, let's see. Okay, all right, here we go. Here we go. He would pay Lee $5,000 every month from Owens' campaign account. Another point during the meeting, developer 2 asked Owens and Smith, "Why do we need Lumumba?" Smith responded. Responded that Lumumba could make things a lot harder. Later on in the conversation, Owens informed the developers that Lumumba had agreed to take a trip to Florida with the developers. He further stated that it was important for the developers to get Lumumba on their side because Lumumba could do damage to the developers' proposed project through the RFQ and permitting process by making it difficult. Owens then warned developers that they needed to be wary of attracting the attention of law enforcement and appearing like they were bribing public officials. Owens, here's the thing. There's a very thin line from the appearance of you guys just being what? This dude's he's remedial. No, he's an idiot. Owens, here's the thing. There's a very thin line from the appearance of you guys being federal agents, right? There's a guy named Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong, right when telecommunication companies first came to the city council, they first came into Mississippi. You remember this? Smith, I do. Owens, they came in and they were everybody's friends. They got a huge contract, and somehow they were able to show that Lewis got something, right? So we got to stay away from the B word. Fund is the word. B word. The B word is a bad word. He's talking about bribe. We don't even say it right. You know what? The B word is right. Owens explained that while he still had 15,000 set aside for banks, okay, so maybe he wasn't going to screw banks over, but he's talking to the developer, not banks. So at this stage, we know Banks is aware that he asked for 25, but I didn't see anything that shows Banks is aware that the developers actually gave Owens the 25 to give to him. All right. So Owens then explained why he still had the 15 set aside for Banks. He and the developer should either keep the money for the time being or use it to pay Lee, who they would be meeting that night. I bet you Owens and Lee had a little this action going on. That's what it's giving. You like, now let's stiff my man and give it to her. Owen said that if they paid Lee, they would need to clean it out like we always do. We'll put it in the campaign account or directly wire it. You can wire it to the bank too, or I can handle it in increments like we've been doing. Owens further stated that he had wired Lee prior debt payments directly to the owner of her debt because that's the only way I want the paper trail to look. Because here's the thing. This dude talk too much, man. Here's the thing. At the end of the effing day, my most important job is to keep everybody out of jail or prison because I'm not effing going. Owens then took an additional $10,000 in cash from the developers and put that money into a bag that he had brought with him for that purpose. Owens explained that the money would fund the Mississippi business account that he was creating for the developers to conceal future payments to officials. That evening, Owens and the developers met in the back room of Company A's. They discussed a future trip to Florida with Lumumba, and Owens laid out the plan to buy Lumumba's support. Specifically, Owens explained that because Lumumba would not take cash directly from the developers would need to give Owens between $50,000 and $100,000 so that Owens could deposit the cash and get campaign contribution checks with those funds from third parties in Mississippi. So he's using straw men. Okay. Owens emphasized that if developers gave Lumumba $100,000 in cash, that everybody goes to jail because we gave over $5,000 cash. Owens went on to say that he kept the money. God, this dude is a chatty patty. Owens went on to say that he kept the money given to him by the developers in a safe at the district attorney's office, mixed with dope money and drug money, and more than millions of dollars. Owens made clear that he did not keep large amounts of cash at home because that money could be directly linked to him. While money kept mixed with other funds at the district attorney's office safe could not be. Because if someone comes in your MF in safe, it's $1 million in cash, it's $1 million. You know what? If they come to my house, it reads like this: DA Owen had 20 grand in cash. Regular people who vote for me, who give me 10 or $100, they can't count that much money. This dude's a jerk. But guess what? In my safe at the DA's office, I got $1 million in cash. Guess what? Your effing 10 grand don't matter. Your if 15 grand, it don't matter. I got $1 million there. But guess what? At my house, it matters. All right, the RFQ deadline and planning for the trip with Lumumba on March 5th, 2005. This is current. On March of 2024, on March 5th of 2024, Owens and Developer Ones met in Owens' office at the Hines County District Attorney's Office. During the meeting, they discussed the fact that the submission deadline for the Downtown Development Project (RFQ) was extended to from March 2024 to April 30th of 2024 to allow for additional submissions. Owens had also had multiple calls with a city employee, which he put on speakerphone for Developer One to hear. In those calls, he expressed his dissatisfaction with the extended deadline and his concern that others, aside from the developers, would bid for a downtown development project. During the same meeting, Owens and Developer Ones discussed the impending trip to Florida with Lumumba. Owens said that he would discuss with Lumumba the way which Lumumba would feel most comfortable with receiving the money from developers. After meeting, Owens texts Lumumba the following: two things to chat about when you have a moment. They came into town to submit their proposal, but learned the deadline had been adjusted another 45 days, presumably because no one else had applied. Need to understand how to donate to your reelection campaign in a sizable way that is most appropriate. Don't know if you have a PAC or when you are planning to, or if we can go through it. Your private fundraiser. This dude just go ahead and put everything in wax, tell everybody everything. Later that day, Owens Developer One met again. Owens informed Developer One that he had texted Lumumba and Lumumba was interested in taking the trip to Florida, and that Lumumba was aware of the developer's desire to move the RFQ submission deadline back up. Owens said that they would hold a fundraiser in Florida and that they could either have 10 guys with 10 checks for Lumumba, or Owens could give Lumumba 10 checks in one envelope. Owens went on to tell Developer One that what we used to do if people wanted to stay under the radar, just give you a bunch of different checks from a bunch of different companies. Between or about March 7th, 2024 and March 9th, Owens and Lumumba spoke on the phone and exchanged texts regarding dates for the trip for Florida. On the evening of March 9th, Owens texted Lumumba stating that he was outside. On March 10th, Owens called Developer One to inform him that he had met with Lumumba the previous evening at Lumumba's house, that everyone was on one accord, and that they would give Lumumba $50,000 at a fundraiser in Florida to avoid scrutiny. Owens said that the plan was to split the $50,000 he received from the developers into checks of $5,000 or $10,000. Owens said that he had assured Lumumba that the $50,000 was just the beginning. And that Lumumba's final number was $100,000. Owens and Lumumba understood that the developers were paying Lumumba in exchange for Lumumba taking official actions to assist the developers in obtaining the developmental project. On March 19th, 2024, Owens opened a Mississippi bank account in the name of the developer's company for, at least in part, the purpose of funneling and concealing future bribe payments to public officials. On or about March 22nd, 2024, Owens and Lumumba exchanged texts to set up a meeting. Prior to the meeting, Developer One and Owens spoke on the phone. During the call, Owens stated that he and Lumumba had discussed the plan to split the money into checks the night prior, and that he and Lumumba were set to meet that afternoon to discuss specifics. Lumumba and Owens exchanged text messages following the call, including one from Lumumba to Owens stating, "On the way." This dude's a douche. On or about March 27th, 2024, Owens planned a dinner meeting for himself, Lee, developers, and others. Owens organized the seating so that Lee was seated next to Developer One. As previously planned by Owens and the developers, Following dinner, Lee accepted a bag containing $3,000 in cash from developer 2, along with the offer to go shopping with developer 2's credit card. Lee accepted those benefits in exchange for her future votes to support the project. The following day, Lee spent more than $6,000 on luxury goods using developer's credit card. Bank confirmation allegiance to the developers. On March 28th, 2024, Banks, Owens, and Smith and the developers met in the back room of Company A. I'm sure Company A was bugged like a mug. During that meeting, the group discussed the request for qualification submission deadline. Banks stated that he was working to move the deadline back to the original date. And it said, given his position, he could threaten to hold up the salary raises of city employees in order to achieve developers' ends. Banks also assured the developer that he would make sure they got certain votes of certain council members. Owens orchestrates Lumumba's bribe payment. On the 27th and 28th of March 2024, developers delivered $50K in cash to Owens at the High County DA's office. Owens converted that money into five $10,000 campaign contribution checks from Smith, Owens, and Company B and two other associates of Owens. Owens reimbursed Smith and the two associates in full. On April 2nd, 2024, Owens, Lumumba, and Smith and the developers went to Fort Lauderdale via the FBI paid private jet, of course. The same day, Owens and Lumumba met with developers in a private room on a yacht. That meeting was audio and video recorded. The following exchange was captured. Owens, we want to be very mindful of out-of-state money. Lumumba, yeah. Owens, so Lumumba is the smartest person in this conversation, even though he's stupid for having it, but he's just saying, yeah, yeah. All right, Owens, what this team did was give us money, being me, and we just filtered it through several accounts in a way we're comfortable doing. Lumumba, yeah. So we did $10,000 check to make it very simple. And then when we get past the process to our second phase, maybe in Jackson, maybe somewhere else, we'll do something similar. Lumumba, yeah. Owens, to make sure there's no worries for you financially, is this thing in this thing, because you're a big part of this thing, is anybody. Developer 1 then asked Lumumba to have the RFQ submission deadline moved from April 30th to April 10th or 15th. Lumumba then placed a telephone call to a city employee, and he directed that employee to move the RFQ submission deadline to April 15th. Look at them. They sitting there. That's fake Ghost and Owens, Lumumba, fake Ghost, and I don't know that Debo Lester. I don't know who he resembled. But later in the discussion, developer 2 handed five $10,000 checks to Lumumba in an envelope. Owens then stated these checks are Mississippi checks, but they're from this group. Lumumba stated, okay. Lumumba ain't never said more than one word. Owens and Lumumba understood that the money were from the developers in exchange for Lumumba's directing his subordinates to move the RFQ deadline up. Owens and Lumumba also understood that the change in the RFQ deadline was worth more than the $5,000 given, resulting the likelihood of elimination of competition for the developers project. Developers agreed to pay Lumumba $50,000 to move up the deadline and pay him an additional $50,000 in the future. Developer 2 then directly asked Lumumba whether the RFQ submission deadline would be moved up. Lumumba checked his text messages and informed the developers that the city employee had called and had confirmed that the RFQ submission deadline would be moved. Later that same day, Owens had a separate discussion with developers, accepted an additional $50,000 in cash contained in the bag from developer 2 for his services. Owens removed the cash from the bag and put it in his pockets. Look at that. Terrible, man. Terrible. During that evening, he looking stupid as hell. During the evening of April 2nd, 2024, as planned by Owens and as agreed by Lumumba, in advance of the trip to Florida, Owens, Lumumba, and the developers and others went to a local club. Okay. I'm sure they didn't go to a party club either. All right, they went to a local club. Before heading to the club, Owens directed developers to make cash available for Lumumba's use at the club. Pursuant to Owens' instruction, developer 2 made 5,000 cash available to Lumumba and others to use at the club. While at the club, Lumumba also directed developer 2 to pay cash to employees at the club for Lumumba's benefit. He got some boom boom room action. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm just gonna be honest, they aren't balling. Because I know regular guys who, yeah, like regular guys who 5,000, nothing. like 5,000, it'd be gone like that. Like, yeah, crazy. So yeah, this is a wild story. This is a wild ass indictment. Following Lumumba's return to Jackson, man, I wanted some club details. I wanted to know what the cash payments for at the club made by developer 2 in exchange for Lumumba's benefits. I want to know what his benefits was. I'm assuming it was boom boom room benefits. All right. Following Lumumba's return to Jackson, Mississippi on April 4th, 2024, the five $10,000 checks Lumumba received on April 2nd, 2024 from developer 2 was deposited into Lumumba's campaign account. Prior to that account, the account balance was approximately $465. On or about April 5th, a checking amount of $9,500 was made payable to Lumumba from his campaign account. On or about April 8th, a checking amount of $5,000 was made payable to Lumumba. These dudes are idiots. Why are you paying yourself from your campaign account? Both checks were ultimately cashed. Dumbass. Partial recovery of funds paid to Owens. Between February and April 2024, Owens made numerous cash deposits at banks around Hinds County, Mississippi. Approximately 18,000 of those deposits consisted of money paid to Owens by the developer. The FBI identified the money via the serial number, marked it up. On May 22nd, 2024, pursuant to a judicially authorized search warrant, the FBI conducted a search of Owens' office at the Hinds County DA office. The search revealed a small locked box made to appear like a book bearing the title, The Constitution, the Constitution of the United States of America. The FBI discovered approximately $20,000 in cash within the container, approximately $9,900 of which was confirmed via serial numbers to be the cash paid to Owens by the developers on December 13th of 2023. Yeah, that book looked crazy. In the Constitution, man. That's crazy. Then you open it up and there's a man, that's wild. That's yeah, this brother is wild, man. He's a straight up, yeah, he's a straight up he's a straight up like professional Nino Brown. All right, the allegations containing. All right, so now we see the conspiracy. I don't think we got to go through all of this because we got all of the facts. Let's just look at the counts. So we got count one, conspiracy. We talked about this multiple times on the channel. When you conspire to do a crime with another person, there's two or more persons who conspire to commit a crime or a criminal act, and they have to do an act that's a substantial step in the furtherance of the commission of that act. So that's count one. Let's see. All right. The object of this conspiracy, clearly obvious. It was the object of the conspiracy for Owens and Smith to enrich themselves. It was object for Banks, Lumumba, and Lee to use their official positions for the benefit to enrich themselves, blah, blah, blah. So I think we good on that. The manner and means of the conspiracy, we went through those facts. So they're still talking about conspiracy. So count one, conspiracy. Okay, let's overt act in the furtherance of the conspiracy. We know what the overt act that each of them did. They asked for the money. They created a company with a bank account. They made deposit. They planned to get checks. So we know what the overt act is that they did in the furtherance of. Count two, federal program bribery. Now, federal program bribery, if you're on the back end, remember, they were looking to facilitate money from HUD and filter that to the developers. Jackson, Mississippi had a loan that they got from HUD. When they got that loan from HUD, they would hold on to those funds. They put out a request for a proposal, request for qualifications. Once they found a contractor to do development of that property, or that 7.75 acres, they could loan that developer the HUD funds at probably a much lower interest rate that they would get from anywhere else. So it was a money making opportunity for everybody. That's why they got federal program bribery, because they were looking to bribe officials utilizing funds from a government program. Count 3, federal program bribery again. Count 4, federal program bribery again. 5, 6. Okay. The use of an interstate facility to aid in a racketeering travel act. Let's read this one because this is one thing that you won't hear about that often. Allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 65 are incorporated, and they talk about specific date where on April 2nd, 2024, Lumumba knowingly and intentionally used and caused to be used a facility in interstate commerce, namely a telephone wire electronic communication, with the intent to promote, manage, establish, carry on, and facilitate the promotion, management, establishment, and carrying on unlawful activity that is bribery in violation of Mississippi Code. Interstate facility in aid of racketeering again. Honest services wire fraud. Now, honest services fraud is one that we talked about. I don't know if y'all remember, for folks who've been with the channel for a while. I didn't even hear of it until I did the video and I was doing research of the top 5 crimes that Tiffany Henry could be charged with. And we talked about honest services fraud. This is honest services wire fraud. Long story short, honest services fraud is just fraud in the natural course of what fraud is. It's just done by someone who has some type of fiduciary duty to a client, to a constituent. So you always see this apply to politicians. So now that we know what honest services fraud is, honest services wire fraud is, hey, you have this elevated duty of care, you're committing fraud, and now you're using wire, internet, phone, some means to communicate to facilitate this fraud. So they just combine honest services fraud with wire fraud, honest services fraud, honest services wire fraud. That's what count 9 is. Money laundering. Money laundering, we know that's trying to clean money, trying to wash money. ADA Owens, District Attorney Owens, did a piss poor job of trying to clean money, because according to this, it reads as if his definition of cleaning money is taking illegal money, opening up an account under a business, transferring that money into the business. Then I can write checks for that exact same amount and the money is cleaned. No, that's not cleaning money. That's just moving a illegal shitload of money from one place to another. You literally could have just gave it to them cash if you were going to do that. But that's money laundering. Piss poor attempt at money laundering. False statements. Let's see. All right. In May of 2024, District Attorney Owens willfully and knowingly made and caused false material statements, fraudulent statements to the FBI when he was interviewed by the FBI for the investigation in Jackson, Mississippi. He was asked whether there were any safes or lock boxes in his office in Hyde County District Attorney's office, and falsely responded that none exist. Even though Owens knew he had a lockbox safe, this dude's ridiculous. And he has no credibility because, bro, why would you lie about that? If they're asking me, hey, DFD, do you got any safes in a place where I know I got safes? They're asking, when you conduct an interview, when I'm doing an interview of you, I already know the answer to the questions that you are going to give me. That's just generally how it works. So, real talk, that was actually dumb. That was dumb. Consistent with everything else. All right. Notice of intent to seek criminal forfeiture. This essentially says that all of the funds that are associated with this, these guys are gonna have their assets frozen. They're gonna be broke as fuck. for for a hell of a long time. But hey, on my scale of how screwed are you? Everybody on this list is screwed. Now I'm gonna play one last video so we can get out there, so we can see what happened to one person already, Miss Angelique Lee. And it's funny because I thought she was black, but she actually isn't black. But it's an interesting story, a complicated story. Let me check out some of the comments real quick. I think we left off at Pit Bulls. What's going on, Lady Luck? Okay, Mayor Lumumba's father changed their family name in 1969 to Lumumba to sound like the Central African tribe. That's the first thing I thought. And give his children African tribal names. Ah, okay. So isn't that fun? They didn't even try to hide the play scheme for developers. It's most people, and I'm gonna just be honest. I think that these guys had significantly more resources than like somebody like a Tiffany Henry, and they couldn't even get it done right. It's really hard to do, which is crazy too. Like I'm shocked at how dumb the DA was in his like, bro. You probably prosecuted. Well, that's the problem. He's the DA. He didn't prosecute nothing. He just is the head of the office, so he probably ain't seen. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at his background, but maybe there was some profit on the back end after developers finish the project, investor benefits perhaps. Well, normally what'll happen when you have these land development things is the developers develop the properties, then this land, but now the developers are going to go out and get businesses who want to put, oh, I want a casino in this hotel. What company is going to facilitate the casino that's in this hotel? Well, I want to build a certain amount of restaurants on this area or a small shopping center. And so it's when you have these type of schemes, it's just a pass down finesse. The politicians work with the developers to get the land on the finesse side of the game. Then the developers start running finesse plays with the business entities who want to put their businesses on this developed property so they can make money, and the shit just go downhill. So it could be kickbacks from the restaurants that agreed to that negotiated with the developer, and that's it's just running up the chain. The same way like mob bosses, you got to pay up to the boss. It's the same type of concept. This is actually ridiculous. Let's see. Yeah, all of these guys are douchebag. I figure why fraud for sure. So that dude talked too much. It's about the actual undercover agent. So I can't. Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard to commit these type of crimes because you just need so many people involved to do it. Like if you can't do it yourself, because the DA, all he doing is like the DA is actually the least powerful person. All he's doing is going getting the other players. The people with the votes are the most powerful people. So really, they could have actually cut the DA out and figured out a way to go directly to these people. I have a question on false statements. Can this charge be given if you lie about material in a federal investigation, although it's not directly to the FBI? Uh, false statements, false statements. There's actually I've done a lot of false statements. There's criminal false statements, civil false statements. There's a false statement statute in general. There's a criminal statute, but there's also a false statements to federal agents, which is a little bit higher exposure. So false statements, most times when you see it, is not in the form of a verbal statement, is in the form of a written statement. I write on a PPP loan application that I got all of these employees, and I got 10 employees, and I got to pay out $22,000 a month to my 10 employees, and I get $1 million in PPP money. That's what we would charge as a false statement because they actually lied on that actual federal government document. So a false statement could be written, it could be spoken, it could be, I could be having a discussion as a government attorney to someone and a false statement could be made. So false statements is a legit thing. False statements to law enforcement is a separate offense, both of which could be charged. Can you be charged with false statements if you make it to a non FBI federal official? It depends. It depends because normally in these types of cases, there's probably some type of task force. So, yes, the answer is yes, but normally you would see it when there's a task force. You would see the FBI, local law enforcement. No, let's say the FBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, if they have one there, the SBI, and they're working a task force along with the Housing and Urban Development Office of Inspector General. In that case, everybody who's on that task force is deemed federal. They probably have some type of deputization by the FBI. So in that case, it doesn't necessarily have to be an employee of the federal government. They aren't getting paid by the federal government, but if they're a member of the task force, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Owens comes from a prominent family, so does Lee. Okay. Okay. Hey, he gives someone who comes from a prominent family because he got this sense of arrogance and entitlement, and he's actually not that smart. Yeah, postal inspector. Yeah, anybody on the federal government. Yeah, postal inspectors. They have arrest authority. All those Office of Inspector Generals, they have law enforcement authority. A park ranger, yeah. Back in the day, Inspector Generals didn't have law enforcement authority. I know this because it was an issue. Back in the day, a lot of those, like a 1811 special agent for an Inspector General or a park ranger, they may not have had law enforcement authority. So because they didn't have law enforcement authority, they would just get deputized by the U.S. Marshal Services, and then they had that deputization, which gave them law enforcement authority. And then I want to say in the 60s, what was it called? The IG Act of 1960 or 70, but it gave inspector generals law enforcement authority. That's when their agents didn't have to get deputized. And it works the same for the park rangers and all. Let me pull up this one video real quick so we can see what's going on with Angelique Lee. It's funny that they came from money. Like, they came from money and they doing this shit for this small amount of money is crazy. Let's see. All right, here you go. Here's a good video right here. All right, we're gonna cue this video up. We're gonna cue this video up before we get out of here, just so we can see what Miss Lee's fate was. This will give us a good picture of what is going to be the fate, Lee. The what is going to be the. I don't want that one. The resign. I don't want that one. Let's see. Why is it? Can I get the actual? We see. She was released. They plead not guilty. I think this is the most recent one right here.
Well, this week, a judge delayed sentencing for Jackson's former Ward 2 councilwoman until further notice. Angelique Lee resigned and pled guilty to federal bribery charges back in mid-August. She was supposed to be sentenced on November 13th. That hearing has been delayed indefinitely. Lee, who is out on bond, faces up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. We will keep you updated as that hearing is rescheduled.
Send her away for the whole 5 years. I'm sending her away for the whole 5 years. I don't give a damn what your family did. I don't care what role you held in the community. People like that need to go. Y'all all need to go. Get the hell out of politics. We don't want y'all here. If the problem with bribes is, if once you start taking bribes, that means you're susceptible to being somebody's pawn. We'll just leave it that way. But this is very interesting. This actually might be the worst. This actually might be the worst indictment that I think we've read collectively on this channel. The DC council members was bad because there was video and audio footage, but I think this one has more self-snitching and I don't know evidence that and statements against your interest than I've ever seen. And I mean, I've seen some pretty bad indictments, but this is definitely one of the worst. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Yo, I actually appreciate everybody who tuned in. Shout out to my guy Harley D for actually making this recommendation. You know, I heard about it, but I didn't dive into it. And he left a couple messages in the chats, and hey, family didn't want to do him a disservice. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I need y'all to do me a favor too. I need a name for my live streams that I'm gonna do. All right, that's a wrap for this story. But I need a favor for y'all. I need a name for my live stream show. What should I call it? Like, what I want to do is a show like I did on Wednesday, where I have like 4 or 5 different stories. We touch on each of those stories. But when it comes to titling those stories, it's just so difficult because it's multiple stories, and you want to try to capture everything, but it just makes it difficult. So I'm trying to think of something I can use as a title, and I'll just do those particular live streams where I'm covering more than 2 stories with those specific titles. I'm trying to think of so that way everybody will know, like, okay, this is a live stream where he's going to do a mashup of 4 or 5 smaller stories versus a live stream like we did today, or a live stream where we just talk about somebody like Tiffany Henyard or something like that. Those are a little bit easier because it's 1 or 2 subjects, easy to do. But y'all help me out, man. In the comments, shoot it to me in the email. Let me know a good name. So it could be like season 1, episode 1 of this, season 1, episode 2. And it's only for those mashup live streams. Y'all let me know in the comments. As always, I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one. Be safe. I might jump on tomorrow because I got to get those 4 stories off. Because if I don't get them off this weekend, they're going to be old news by Monday. I'll talk with y'all later. Y'all be safe. Be blessed. Peace.